We wanted to define heat and discuss the difference between heat and temperature, properties like specific heat, how to calculate heat, how heat is transferred between different forms.
We were talking with Region 13 and we had decided, that, hey, we had always had this unit that kind of was just, you get through because it's in the content, but you just have a hard time with. And so we decided we'd like to find another way of teaching this unit. What we did is we went ahead and developed a PBL based off of energy or thermodynamics. And we went ahead and developed that for our entire 10th grade sophomores.
Okay, we're going to start a unit on heat, but we're going to do it a little bit different this time.
So we had seen an episode of Shark Tank where they had introduced a product called a coffee Joule that was supposed to bring down the temperature of the coffee to a drinkable temperature and then leave it at that temperature for an extended period of time. And so we thought that might be a good way to apply the concepts of our teaks.
Okay, so what do we know about the Joule? Keeps it at a drinkable temperature, and what temperature was that?
The evidence piece came from their labs, came from their investigations that they did to support their claims. We had real Joules and we tested them, and we were able to quantitatively, with numbers, be able to assess the effectiveness of these Joules.
These two groups will have just water. These two groups will test the Joule.
We had 3 different cups and we heated the water up to 180 degrees. So we would have the same amount of water in each cup, and one would have the Joule, one would have the steel.
In one setup, we're going to test just stainless steel. So we have the exact mass of the Joule in paper clips. And then we're also going to be testing just wax. Do you remember what wax has to do with the Joule?
The coffee Joule, it has a special wax inside that's supposed to take in more heat and lose it less quickly than metal or just plain water.
And we would basically take the temperature every 2 minutes, and then we would record it.
And we can see that the coffee Joule has brought it down to about 67 degrees Celsius. I guarantee it.
So our end product rubric involved a CEI, Claim Evidence Interpretation, and so for every question they did, they provided that claim, evidence, and interpretation. Formative and summative assessments were big in our minds of how we're going to test the student understanding of the content. I think you really understand a student's knowledge and comprehension of something when they can write about it effectively.
To integrate the knows and needs to knows every day, we had this one document where they were collecting all of their generated questions and then their answers.
As teachers, we were really able to identify what students understood, what they didn't understand, and why. And so it was a really, really strong and effective evaluation.
What surprised me was how engaged the kids ended up being. They were really, really upset to find out that it didn't actually work, and just how invested that they ended up being in the product.
So what would you tell Mark Cuban?
I would tell Mark Cuban that to not invest in this product. But they were nice guys, so maybe, but I don't know.
So one of our initial hesitations was if we'd be able to give our standard test that we normally give, and one thing we found is that we were able to give the same test we always gave, and we actually had higher grades overall. And I thought it was awesome.
It really helps the students interact and understand what we're doing.
Projects like this are interesting because it gives us something to do in class. We get to interact with our own peers and it helps us learn easier.
I've seen many Shark Tanks and I've heard many product pitches, but I've never actually tested if they worked, and this time we actually did. The people who went on Shark Tank said they worked. Well, they did not, and we proved that. So that's what I liked about this lab.